All right, good evening, everyone. Let us begin. It's a great sukkah. I'm actually very excited. Emirz Hashem, tonight we are continuing in Sefer Tehillim. Emirz Hashem, we are back. I know we spent a lot of weeks on everything else. Emirz Hashem, our schedule for the coming weeks is this week, next week, Emirz Hashem Tehillim. And then I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but then it's the pre-Pesach shir. I don't want to make anyone too on edge, but Emirz Hashem, then pre-Pesach shir, and then we'll go on break for Pesach. But the truth is, what I would like to do is something that I've been wanting to do for a very, very, very long time. And Emirz Hashem this week and next week will afford us the opportunity to do it, which is we're in our journey through Tehillim, which has been going on for the last number of years. So Baruch Hashem, I think we're somewhere around like Kapitel Peites, something around that. But I'd like to skip really kind of leading up Emirz Hashem to the Yom Tov of Pesach and go to Kapitel Kuf. And in Kapitel Kuf, we're focusing on the Kapitel of Mizmor L'Soda, which is a very beautiful Kapitel, a very meaningful Kapitel. And Emirz Hashem, one which we will be Zocha Emirz Hashem to be able to really delve into, spend a little bit of time focusing on and try to develop a little bit of a deeper message and a greater meaning. So let's begin. Source number one, Mizmor L'Soda Hariyo LaHashem Kol Haaretz. So let's first just take a quick look at the Kapitel. So literally again, a song of thanksgiving. Hariyo LaHashem Kol Haaretz. Shout to the Lord, all the earth. Again, we'll define a little bit more exactly what these things mean. Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha bo l'fanav b'ernana. Serve Hashem with joy. Come before Him with praise. Du'u ki Hashem hu Elokim. Hu asanu v'lo anachnu amo v'tzon mariso. So know that Hashem is God. He made us. We are His people and the flock of His pasture. Bo sha'arav b'soda. Chatzei rosa b'sila. Hodulo baruch hu shemo. Come to His gates with thanksgiving, into His courtyards with praise. Give thanks to Him, bless His name. Pasuk Hey, Kito Hashem li'olam chasdo, v'yad dar vadar emunaso. For Hashem is good, His kindness is forever, and until generation after generation is His faith. So tonight, we're really going to be solely focused on the opening phrase. Mizmor L'Soda Hariyo LaHashem Kol Haaretz. A song of thanksgiving, literally translated, call out to the Lord, call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of the earth. So what is this talking about? Like we've seen in our journeys through Sefer Tehillim, that every kapitel has a story, every kapitel has a background, every kapitel has a historical message, a contemporary message. So let's take a look at number 2. So the Metzudas David and the Malbim, in sources 2 and 3, both understand this kapitel in a very specific way. The Metzudas David writes in number 2, he says, L'Soda, Zeha Mizmar Yomar Hamevi Toda Al Hanes Hana'aselo. So the Metzudas David says like this. When was this kapitel said? Now, it's important, a little bit of background. What did David HaMelech want to do more than anything? More than anything, David HaMelech wanted to what? To build the Beis HaMikdash. That's what he wanted. But for a variety of different reasons, he was not given the privilege of building the Beis HaMikdash. But interestingly enough, David does almost everything other than actually build it, right? He purchases the site, the threshing floor from Aravna Hayivusi, the future site for the Beis HaMikdash, and he does something else, right? Sefer Tehillim. What's Sefer Tehillim in its essence? Sefer Tehillim in its essence is the music of the Beis HaMikdash. You know, it's interesting. You know, I always find like in our shul, we like to sing a lot, but not everybody likes to sing a lot. So often there's like a tension between the Kalbach Chevra, the non-Kalbach Chevra, right? You know, it's interesting that because we haven't had a Beis HaMikdash for so long, we've forgotten that song and music are an integral part of avoda in the Beis HaMikdash. The Rambam paskins that if you go and you offer up a carbon without shira, without Levitic song, the carbon is ineffective. It's ineffective. It's not a proper offering. So music was such a profound part of temple service. Who wrote the music for the Beis HaMikdash? Who wrote it? David HaMelech. And so much of Sefer Tehillim is David's attempt, not just attempt, David HaMelech writing the music for the Beis HaMikdash. So here the Metzudas David says, this kapitel Kuf, the kapitel of Mizmor L'Soda, was the kapitel that David HaMelech wrote, that when a person brings a carbon toda, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit, person brings a thanksgiving offering, this is the kapitel that you say, or that you sing, along with the carbon. And the Metzudas David goes on, number 2, second line, Hariyu al-ki tiru mif'alos Hashem b'hanes hana'aseli. So the way that the Metzudas David reads the pasuk is like this. Mizmor L'Soda. We're going to sing a song of thanksgiving. When do you sing a song of thanksgiving? When you bring a carbon toda, when you bring a thanksgiving offering, which we'll discuss why you bring a thanksgiving offering. Then what happens when you bring the thanksgiving offering? Hariu Hashem kol haaretz. Everyone calls out to Hashem. Because what happens when you bring a thanksgiving offering? You can imagine, by the way, just so you understand, I should have put this on the sheet. Carbon toda was a fascinating carbon. What was so unique about the carbon toda? That there was an animal offering associated with it, but there was also the else carbon toda. There were 40 loaves brought with the carbon toda. Okay. Now, by the way, if you're bringing 40 loaves, what else do you have to bring with you to the base of Mikdash? Friends, right? Why? Because that's a lot of food. That's a lot of food for one family, for one person to eat. So what's interesting is carbon toda by definition required you to share it with other people. Why? Because if something dramatic happened to you, we'll discuss what type of dramatic events, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted you to share that with other people. Why? Because it's inspiring. Right? You hear about this all the time. When something miraculous happens to someone and you hear the story, you're inspired by it. Even though it didn't happen to you, you're inspired by it. So the Mitzvah says something amazing. Here's how you read the pasuk. Mizmor l'soda. Sing this capital when one brings a carbon toda Thanksgiving offering. And as a result of that, of your Thanksgiving offering, and having to include other people in your carbonic service, Hariu Lashem Kal Haaretz. Everyone will call out to Hashem. Why? Because when people hear about my miracle, they're going to be inspired. And when I hear about your miracle, I'm going to be inspired. So you're going to call out to Hashem when you hear about my miracle. I'm going to call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I hear about your miracle. So that's how the Metzudas David understands it. And the Malbim, very similar. Take a look at number 3. Mizmor l'soda, al hoda'ah shel nes. So once again, when something miraculous happens to you, you bring a carbon toda, Hariu Lashem. Shebe'es yinag. Okay, the Malbim then goes on. He actually gives a little bit of a different interpretation. He says, Shebe'es yinag api ateva, doma kemelech hasagar behechalo, umanhig aidei sara v'yoatzav. So let me give you a little bit of background to this. The Malbim says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu conducts himself in essentially 2 different models. There's the natural order and there's the supernatural order. So the Malbim says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu conducts himself like in the natural order of things, he's like a king in his palace. How does the king conduct the affairs of state when he's in his palace? How does he do it? He has his ministers, his officers, he has other people that he sends to go ahead and do his bidding. On the other hand, Aval Be'ez Hanes, I'm in number 3, second line in, Aval Be'ez Hanes, Yitme Kemelech Hayotzi Mehechalo, Umishalich Ben Ha'am Lashkiach Ba'atzmo Al Inyanehem. Ve'az Yariu Kulam Trua Gdol Lahamlicho. So here's what's amazing. When the king is in his palace and he's kind of just doing his thing, right? He's just being the king, and he's got a whole system of government to execute all of his wishes and wills. So what happens? How does the common man feel about the king? How does he feel about the king? Again, I appreciate the king. King's doing a great job. Do I feel a personal connection to the king? Not really. Because again, as much as I understand that I'm the beneficiary of how the king is running the kingdom, I don't necessarily see the hand of the king directly. But when the king comes out of his palace, right? And you can imagine the king comes to my town, and the king stops at my house, and the king starts asking me questions, or the king asks what he can do, suddenly there is a profound personal connection to the king. So the Malbim says something very beautiful. Each and every day we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. We know that. But there are times in life when I know more acutely that God is running the world. And when is that? When is that? When there's a miracle. Right? When something happens. And the truth is, we can all relate to this. You're ever driving and you get almost get into an accident. Right? And I'm even talking about ones that not even your fault. Right? Someone else was doing something. And how do you feel in that moment? How do you feel? Like the Rebbe just literally saved me. Like I feel, the problem is it wears off about 3 seconds later, right? But that's a different discussion. The point over here is when there's miraculous activity, I feel that direct connection with the king. Again, I always know that the king is running things. And I also have enough spiritual awareness to know that in any given moment, there are multiple miracles that are unfolding all around me that probably I will remain unaware of forever. But in those moments when a miracle does occur, then it's striking how involved the king is in my life. So the Malbim says that's the pshat. Mizmor l'soda. When you're bringing a carbon toda, and again, why we're bringing a carbon toda, a Thanksgiving offering, something supernatural, something miraculous occurred. We'll get into it in just a moment. When that happens, and again, I've just experienced a direct divine intervention. And then I'm sharing it with others because the carbon is too big to be consumed by myself. So I definitely have to share it with others. What ends up happening? Hariyul Hashem Kol Haaretz. Everyone is talking about God. Everyone's talking about God. Everyone's talking to God. Everyone's involved with God because everyone is overwhelmed by my miracle. Okay, so therefore the common denominator between the Metzudas David and the Malbim, sources 2 and 3, is they understand that David HaMelech wrote this kapitel specifically to accompany the Karban Toda. Karban Toda, person brings a thanksgiving offering. There is an understanding that at the end of the day, when you bring that Karban Toda, ultimately, again, you are to say this particular kapitel. Beautiful, beautiful. What happens when you make a Karban Toda? Everyone is, so to speak, up in arms in a good way about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everyone is crying to Hashem. Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about Karban Toda. So when does one bring a thanksgiving offering? Now, by the way, lest you think that this doesn't really apply that much today because we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, it does apply because remember, in the absence of a Karban Toda, we have something in lieu of it. What do we have in lieu of it? Birchas HaGomel. Birchas HaGomel. There is a special bracha that one says when they are in a precarious or saved from a precarious situation, whether that's like I'll call it everyday type of situation, like childbirth, right? A woman benches gomel, right? Even though again, Baruch Hashem, it's a natural occurrence, but it's a life-threatening situation. A woman benches gomel to everything from more acute situations, which we'll discuss. So I just want to point out that essentially, wherever we contemporarily say Birchas HaGomel is when one would have brought a Karban Toda. So the Gemara talks about this. Look at number 4. Amar Vidu Marav. Arba tzrichin lahodos. There are 4 people that have to give thanksgiving to Hashem. Now, just to be clear, the real way to read that Gemara is everyone has to give thanksgiving to Hashem at all times. But there are 4 people who have to bring a Karban Toda, or specifically also have to bench Gomel. Who are they? Number 1, Yardei Hayam. You travel by sea. Travels by sea. Now, it's interesting, by the way. This is traveling over a body of water. So again, historically, they were talking about a boat. Contemporarily, we say Birchas HaGomel when we travel by plane, over large bodies of water as well. So Yardei Hayam, Holchei Midbaros, you travel in a desert. So remember again, these were life-threatening situations. Or Misha Hayachole V'nisrape, someone who was very ill. Very ill. Now, generally in this context, it means deathly ill. Someone who was deathly ill and Baruch Hashem recovered. Umisha Yachavu Shebeis Asurim V'yatza. And someone ultimately who was incarcerated in jail. Now understand, the Gemara is also talking about a very different kind of jail than what we have. The Gemara is talking about, again, jail in a society that often one was jailed at the whim of someone. Not necessarily a jail that is part of a legal system or a due process, but in any event, not our topic for tonight. Right? So again, these are the 4 examples. You travel by body of water, you ultimately go through a desert, you were sick and were healed, or you were incarcerated and you got out. In all of these cases, my mevarich, Am Rav Yehuda, Gomel Chasadim Tovim. Right? So we have a little bit of a different version of the bracha, but essentially Birchas HaGomel, and these are the very same people who would go ahead and bring Karban Toda. It's interesting because this often comes up with ideas that people always have shots about when they bench Gomel, when they don't bench it. So it's just interesting. These are the 4 primary cases where one would bring a Karban Toda, and therefore one would go ahead and bench Gomel. Beautiful. So therefore, if we pause here for just a moment, now I understand it. So now I understand there are 4 circumstances in which one would give or bring a thanksgiving offering. And therefore, Kapitel Kuf, Mizmor L'Soda, David HaMelech knew that there was going to be a Karban Toda. Of course there's a Karban Toda. Torah speaks about a Karban Toda. So David HaMelech knows it's going to be a Beis Hamikdash. You have to be a Karban Toda. I need to prepare the music, says David HaMelech, to accompany the Karban Toda. Kapitel Kuf, Mizmor L'Soda. That's it. But here's what's interesting. Let's analyze a little bit. So first of all, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh comments, not on this Gemara, but on Parashat Sav. Look what he writes in number 5. And this is actually a really profound idea. He says, Lefamim, sometimes, Yochol lahamshich tovos ayidei hadiburim shumedaber. So this statement is a very interesting one. So Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says that sometimes a person could bring about good realities through the words that they say. L'mashal, he gives an example. Imhu b'shivya, let's say one is in captivity. Yedaber me'oso inyan arba'at tzrichin lahodos. What should you do if you're in captivity? One should recite the Gemara that we just said in number 4. Because what does that Gemara say? If a person's in captivity and they're released, they bring a carbon toda. So therefore the Baal Shem Tov says, if a person Chas Hashem is being held captive, then ultimately again they should say this Gemara. And through the recitation, through the utterance of positive words bring about positive results. He gives other examples like this. If a person has a particular type of illness, one should speak about the powers of healing. All right, speak about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's power of healing. So, very interesting idea. That sometimes when you are in a difficult situation, the Rebbe says, the best thing you could do is kind of speak in a positive way, a salvational way, because positive words bring about positive results. And in fact, if you look at number 6, interestingly enough, the Maggid of Mezrich, now remember again, the Maggid was the Talmud Mufak, was the primary disciple of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. And the Maggid says same thing. He says, sometimes a person could change their entire life circumstances by how they talk, by the words they choose. Al derech mashal, he quotes the same idea. If a person is in captivity, literally again in shackles, he should speak of the topic of the Gemara number 4, that there are 4 people who, when they are freed from their difficult circumstances, have to bring a carbon toda. So the Maggid just expands on the Baal Shem Tov a little bit. He says, so again, if a person is ill, speak about healing. Speak about healing. So when you're in a difficult situation, ultimately, again, speak in positive terms about the resolution of your situation. Which, by the way, is just a fascinating idea that about how we talk creates realities. Now, again, we certainly understand this in the realm of relationships, right? How I speak to the other definitely creates relationship realities. But what's happening over here, right? This is interesting. So both the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich, they're saying the same thing. Just the Maggid expounds on it a little bit. But they're both saying the same thing, which is when you are in a difficult situation, so speak about the positive resolution of your circumstances, and that by definition will usher in a period of positive resolution. Now, before we explain that, I want to show you something very interesting. If you go back up to number 4 for just a moment, right? If you notice, right, we said the Gemara spoke about 4 categories. And what are the 4 categories? Yardei Hayam, right? That's number 1, travel by sea. Number 2, Hochem Baros, travel in the desert. Number 3, Misha Hayachola v'nisrape, someone who was ill and then became healed. And number 4, Misha Yachol Shoyes Asurim v'yatza, someone who was incarcerated and then was freed. If you notice, the 4 expressions are not symmetrical, right? Why are they not symmetrical? Take a look at the text. Why are they asymmetrical? If you were writing this Gemara, you wanted it to be symmetrical, how would you write it? So first of all, present and past, excellent. And also remember, it should have been Yardei Hayam v'yatza, right? Or uba, right? Holchei midbaros uba. Because remember, the second 2 is someone was ill and then they were healed. Someone was incarcerated and then he was freed. So the second 2 speak about crisis and resolution. The first 2, interestingly enough, just speak about crisis, right? Yardei Hayam. Okay, and what? And what? Or Hoche Midbaros, and what? So it's interesting that the Lashonos, the expressions, are asymmetrical. So perhaps what's unfolding over here is as follows. There are 2 different types of thanksgiving that we give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's classic Thanksgiving, right? What's classic Thanksgiving? Not turkey and stuffing, right? Classic Thanksgiving is, I was in a difficult predicament, and the Ribono Shel Olam delivered me. Classic. And everyone understands that, of course, I have an obligation of hodah, of thanksgiving, of expression of gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu because He delivered me. That's the second 2. Misha Yacholav in Israel, someone was ill and then they were healed, of course. Misha Yachoshe Asurim, someone who was incarcerated and then freed, of course you give hodah. Remember, the challenge in those scenarios, what's the challenge in those scenarios? What's the challenge? What's the challenge is the ability to perpetuate the feeling of gratitude. Right? Everyone feels gratitude when the crisis is first averted. Continuing to feel it is sometimes what becomes a little bit more of a challenge. But the second two examples are classic gratitude. I was in trouble and then I was delivered. I think what Chazal are introducing us to is that there are two other forms of gratitude. So of course, if I'm in crisis and then delivered from crisis, I have to bring a carbon toda. That goes without saying. But at the end of the day, there's another type of gratitude as well. What's that type of gratitude? It's what we'll call anticipatory gratitude. Anticipatory gratitude means I am in trouble, and I am still in trouble, but I am absolutely, unequivocally, anticipatorily confident that I am going to be delivered from this crisis. How, what, when, where, I don't know. I don't know. But I believe absolutely unequivocally with all of my heart that some way, somehow, things are going to be okay. And in fact, that's the first two forms of gratitude. Look what the Gemara says. Who are the first two? Yardei Hayam. Now, by the way, Yardei Hayam sounds like, where are you? Yardei Hayam, where are you? Where are you?
Under the water.
Right? Well, under the water, right? Hopefully not under, right? But certainly on the water. Holchei Midbaros, where are you? Where are you? In the desert, which means we're talking about a person who is on the high seas. We're talking about a person who is in the arid desert. We're referring metaphorically to a person who is in the midst of life crisis. And what is the avoda of the Yid? What is the avoda of the Jew? When in the midst of life crisis, and I know this might sound crazy, the avoda is confidence. The avoda is of a sense of absolute hope and anticipatory gratitude. I know that things are going to be okay. Now, I just want to caution on this a little bit. When we say, I know that things are going to be okay, right? There's a big qualifier in that. What does it mean things are going to be okay? What does it mean?
Sometimes it's not okay.
Right? That it's going to be okay in some way. It doesn't mean, in other words, the paradigm for this, right? That we have a paradigm for this. What's the biblical paradigm for this? The biblical paradigm that Ramban brings down when Yaakov Avinu fights against the Malach of Esav. So the Ramban says, the Ramban uses it as a biblical foreshadow, a biblical metaphor for our entire struggle against Esav. But I've often thought that it's not just a struggle about Esav, it's a struggle of life. Right? Yaakov Avinu is fighting in the darkness of night, and he's fighting an unknown force, and he feels overwhelmed. But what does he do? He holds his ground the entire night. He refuses to give in, he refuses to yield, he refuses to succumb. And the sun comes up and he's standing. He's standing, but what else? He's injured. He's limping. He's limping because a lot of life is like that. That a lot of times in life, I'm still standing. I'm going to stand. It's not a shaila, right? I'm not going to be flat on my back. I'm going to be standing, but I may also be limping. And that's an important yesod in life. Believing that I'm going to come out okay means I'm going to remain standing. It doesn't mean I'm going to remain unscathed. It doesn't mean that I'm unharmed. It doesn't mean that I'm unchanged, but I'm standing. And perhaps that's the other form of gratitude. That even when I am in the midst of crisis, before salvation has been delivered, I am filled with confidence that I am somehow, some way going to be okay. Okay is a relative term. I don't know what I'm going to look like or feel like or be like on the other side of this crisis, but one thing is clear, I will remain standing. And David HaMelech is teaching us to have that level of confidence. And by the way, this theme repeats itself over and over and over in Tehillim. David HaMelech says, Va'ani bechastecha batachti yageli bi bishuasecha. Literally translated, Ani bechastecha batachti. I have faith in your chesed. Right? Yageli bi bishuasecha, future tense. I will rejoice in your salvation. What do you mean I will rejoice future tense in your salvation? David HaMelech is saying, right now, life stinks. Right now, life is difficult. Life is overwhelming. But I believe with all of my heart that some way, somehow, I will be okay. Two different models of gratitude. There's what we'll call classic gratitude. You're in trouble and you're delivered. Baruch Hashem, nes. A nes. Then, of course, Yisrael Baruch Hu, thank you, Karban Toda, Berchas HaGomel. And then anticipatory gratitude. I'm in a difficult spot right now, but I believe with all of my heart that I'm going to be okay. How, when, what, where, I have no idea, but I absolutely believe it. I'll show you something interesting about this kapitel. If you look back at number 1 for just a moment, if you notice over here, right? So this is the kapitel that is all about Thanksgiving. Karban Toda. So, right? We spoke about. So Damelech said, this is what you sing when you bring a Karban Toda. What's missing from this kapitel? What's missing? What's missing from this? What would you say? You would have thought that in this kapitel, David HaMelech himself would share something, right? Because David HaMelech shares a lot of personal sharing in Tehillim. So I would have thought if David HaMelech is writing a kapitel about Thanksgiving, there must have been some crisis, and he must have been delivered. But if you notice again, the kapitel makes absolutely no mention of David HaMelech's personal crisis, which is interesting, because a Karban Toda is only brought when there is crisis. If there's no crisis, right, it's interesting, certain karbanos, remember again, you could bring voluntary karbanos. You could bring a nadava, and all you could bring gift offerings. You can't wake up one morning and say, you know what, today, I'm in the mood for a Karban Toda. You can't do it. Karban Toda can only be brought if there is an obligation to bring it. And when is there an obligation to bring it? That's source number 4, the 4 circumstances we outlined. So one would have thought that in the kapitel that is about Karban Toda, David HaMelech would have spoken about his own life circumstances that would warrant his Toda, yet he doesn't say anything. Because perhaps what David HaMelech is trying to draw our attention to is not classic gratitude, but rather it's anticipatory gratitude. David HaMelech doesn't speak about a gratitude event because it didn't happen yet. He's still in the midst of existential crisis. But with all of that, David HaMelech finds the ability to have anticipatory gratitude. And by the way, think about this in just a moment. What a maila, right? What a level, what a level of emunah to reach, where I could literally be filled with anticipatory gratitude. Right now, I am in the midst of a difficult circumstances. Life is overwhelming. Life is difficult. But yet, even in all of that, my heart is filled with profound gratitude to Hashem because I am so infused with the belief that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come through for me. Imagine living life like that, right? Any normal person has classic gratitude, right? In other words, if you don't have classic gratitude, then a person's an ingrate, right? If HaKadosh Baruch Hu does something for me, I'm in trouble, he saves me. Of course, any normal person has gratitude. But Daniel says that's not the Mizmor L'Soda. That could be maybe Soda. That's Karban Toda. What's the Mizmor, right? Mizmor L'Soda means, like, it's almost like there's a Karban Toda, and then there's a Mizmor L'Soda. So the Karban Toda, that's classic gratitude. But the song of gratitude is the ability to sing that I know everything is going to be okay, that Rebbe Shalom has my back, even when I am in the midst of difficult circumstances. That's lesson 1. Then I'll show you another approach as well with this kapitel. And again, they're not mutually exclusive, they're just different sides of the same kapitel. Take a look at number 7. This is an incredible medrash. Mizmor L'Soda. Listen to this. So, Zeu Shomer HaKasav, Mechase Pisha'av Lo Yatzliach, Umoda V'ozev Yerucham. So, the medrash quotes the pasuk from Mishlei. And the pasuk literally translates as, somebody who tries to cover their sins will not be successful. Umode va'ozev, but one who admits his sins, va'ozev, and then leaves them, doesn't repeat them, Yerucham, will receive divine compassion. So much profound. One day when we finish Sefer Tehillim, I don't know when that would ever be, but one day we'll move on to Mishlei after that. Amirat Hashem. A lot of profundity in the father and son, and a lot of time they're very complementary of one another. Okay, so Shalom Aleichem teaches us, if you think you could just bury your problems, right? You're not even fooling yourself, because we all know you can't run away from your problems. They always run faster than you. So you could try to cover them up, but it won't work. It won't work. Owning your mistakes, owning your shortcomings, owning your problems, that's the best way ultimately to curry divine favor. So listen to this. This is a wild medrash. Who is the one who is mechaseb shav? Who's the one who tried to cover his sins? Zeh Adam Harishon. Wow. This is Adam. What happened with Adam? Sha'amar la'akadosh baruch hu ha'isha asher nasata imadi. Remember, we know the story. Adam and Chava had one mitzvah. Right? Well, they had two mitzvahs actually. The first mitzvah was eat and enjoy the world. Right? We sometimes forget about this. Kadosh Baruch Hu told Adam, "It's all yours. It's all yours. Eat and enjoy." The most incredible thing is that Ribono Shel Olam wants us to enjoy life. He wants us to enjoy the material world. He wants us to enjoy it responsibly. He wants us to enjoy it in moderation. But He put it here for us to enjoy it. Everybody's always so focused. They always say, Adam and Chava only had one mitzvah. Don't eat from the tree. It's not true. It's not true. The first mitzvah was eat. Right? Shefala, eat. Tatla mamala, eat, please. Eat more and more. Enjoy everything you want. Just don't eat this. Just don't eat this. So what happens? We know Adam and Chava eat from the tree. Kadosh Baruch Hu confronts Adam. And what does Adam do? What does he do? He deflects. And he blames. It was Chava. Ha'isha shenasata imadi. She was the one who gave me. So therefore, again, this is a very damning medrash, right? So the medrash says, what's Adam Arishon? He is mechasep shav. He's the person who tries to bury his sin, conceal his sin. And now, as a result, here's what's interesting. As a result, v'lo ratza la'asos tshuva. Adam didn't do tshuva. This is a wild medrash. Adam didn't do tshuva. Now, by the way, it makes perfect sense. What's the first step in tshuva? First step? Right? First step is vidui, the Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva. Kishiyasa Adam tshuva. Kishiyasa Adam tshuva v'yashuv mechet'o. The Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva halacha aleph. I'm sorry. Kishiyasa Adam tshuva v'yashuv mechet'o. Chayiv lehisvados. Vidui. Confession is the first thing. It's very simple. If you don't confess it, you don't own it. And if you don't own it, you can't fix it. So the Medrash says something absolutely amazing. Adam Harishon did not do tshuva for his chait, which makes sense. Because if he spent all the time saying it wasn't me, it was Chava. Well, if it's not you, then you have nothing to do tshuva for. So therefore, Adam doesn't do tshuva. This is a wild Medrash. So I'm sorry. Now this is incredible, by the way. Where does the Medrash say that Adam didn't do tshuva from? Now, first of all, we don't find tshuva recorded in the text, but watch this. Keep your finger here at number 7 and just skip to 8 for just a moment. Look at 8. This is Hashem speaking to the Beis Din Shalah, the heavenly court, and He says, Hein ha'adam haya ke'echem min al-adas tovara. Man is like becoming like one of us. He now knows there's between good and evil. Va'ata pen yishlach yadav v'lakach gam me'etz ha'chayim v'achal v'chayil yolam. What is Kadosh Baruch Hu concerned about? Maybe Adam now is going to take from which tree? The tree of life. And Adam is going to become immortal. So the Medrash says something amazing. The fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu is concerned that Adam is still going to take from the tree of life indicates to us what? That Adam didn't do tshuva. If Adam was a real Baal tshuva, then the Ribono Shel Olam should not have any further concerns about his behaviors. The fact that Hashem says we got to get Adam out of Gan Eden, because if we let him stay in Gan Eden, he's going to eat from the tree of life, and he's going to become immortal like us. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has that concern, says the Medrash, means Adam Harishon didn't do tshuva. He didn't do tshuva. Okay, go skip down a little bit. I'm now back in number 7, 4 lines up from the bottom. So therefore, again, the Medrash says Adam Harishon is the personification of the first part of the phrase, first part of the passage. Mechasep shav lo yatzliach. One who tries to obscure or hide his sins will not be successful. That's Adam Harishon. Adam blamed Chava, didn't own it, didn't take responsibility, and therefore never does tshuva. Who's the personification of the second part of the pasuk? What's the second part? One who admits his culpability or liability and pledges not to do it again. Such a person will receive divine compassion. Who is that? Get ready for this. Zeh Kayin. That refers to Kayin. Adam Rishon says, Kayin came from before Hashem. So just if you pause, you realize how dramatic this is? The Medrash says, Adam Rishon, the father, did not do tshuva. Cain, who killed his brother, right, the first act of bloodshed in the world, did tshuva, and as a result received, divine compassion. It says, Vayetze Cain lifnei Hashem, Amar Rav Huna, v'lamesh yatsa sameach. When it says that Cain left from before God, Cain left happy. Why did he leave happy? because he did tshuva and he was forgiven by Kadosh Baruch Hu. By the way, what's the right? That's incredible. Shnei Amar vayetze Haman bayamahu sameach v'tov leiv. As the pasuk is that lashon of vayatza, to go out, means a lashon of happiness. Haman went out and he was happy. Cain went out from before God and he was happy. Why? Because Cain was about tshuva. Cain owned it, right? Remember again, at first, Cain denies it also, right? Cain deflects. Remember, Kadosh Baruch Hu confronts him about. Remember, Hashem says to Cain, "Hey, Hevel achicha, where's Hevel your brother?" And remember again, what does Cain answer? Hashomer achi anochi, my brother's keeper. But then he owns it. Then Cain says, "Gadol avoni minso." My sin is too much to bear. Cain owns it. He becomes about tshuva. So watch this. This is crazy. The Gemara says, what happened? Paga ba'adam rishon. After Cain killed Hevel and was judged by God, he runs into his father. And Adam says to him, Amar lo, ma na'aseh b'dinecha. So Adam asks Cain, tell me, Cain, what's your punishment? They're they're comparing punishments. Right? Adam says, I sinned, and I got a lot of stuff from a lot of baggage from my sin. You killed your brother. What was your punishment? Amar le, asisi tshuva v'nis pasharti. God and I, we worked it out. Right? In other words, I did tshuva. I said, I'm sorry, I owned it, and we came. Now, this pasharti means pshara. Remember again, Cain doesn't get off scot-free, right? There's also ramifications and implications from his sin. But the point Cain says is, Dad, I didn't have what you had, right? You got it much worse. But I did tshuva, and I, Amar lo, v'kachu tshuva gidola tov lo dos l'Hashem. Other Mishnah says, wow, if only I had realized the power of tshuva. If only I had realized the power of tshuva. What a striking and overwhelming medrash. Adam Arishon, sin, doesn't do tshuva, doesn't own it, therefore it doesn't become about tshuva. Cain, what would appear to be even a worse sin, yet does tshuva and is able to work things out with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Look at the last line of the medrash. The kevan shera'a Moshe kach. When Moshe Rabbeinu learned of this whole dynamic of Adam and Cain, sider aleha mizmor l'soda. The Medrash says David HaMelech didn't write Mizmor l'Soda. Now remember again, this is not a strange thing because there are a number of kapitlach in Tehillim that David HaMelech arranged but were not written by David HaMelech. The Medrash posits that David didn't write Mizmor l'Soda. Who wrote Mizmor l'Soda? Old Moshe Rabbeinu. And when did Moshe Rabbeinu write Mizmor l'Soda? After hearing about the profound power of tshuva. When Moshe Rabbeinu heard about this entire discussion of Adam and Cain, how Adam refusal to own it prevents him from becoming a Baal Tshuva, which leaves the sin leaves the sin like an open item, versus Cain, who literally kills his brother, but is willing to take responsibility and work things out with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu hears this, the power of Tshuva, and ultimately, again, he says, Mizmor l'Soda. Now, what does this mean? So perhaps what the Medrash is telling us is as follows. You see, remember, according to the first approach, which was the Metzudas David, the Malbim, the Baal Shem Tov, the Magid, this whole kapitel is written by David HaMelech, and it's really linked to Karban Toda. What the Medrash is saying is, this is not about Karban Toda. This is about Thanksgiving, but not about Karban Toda. What is it Thanksgiving for? It's Thanksgiving for the greatest gift that Hashem has ever conferred on mankind, and that is the power to change. And when Moshe hears about the power, remember, because that's what tshuva is. Tshuva, right? We speak about this idea, a person can be about tshuva. You don't have to commit some type of egregious sin or have been non-religious for a very long period of your life, for sure, but in order to become a Baal Tshuva, right? A Baal Tshuva just means someone who chooses to access and harness the power of change. It's interesting. It drives me a little bit crazy. Sometimes people use the term Baal Tshuva. I had this today. It drives me a little bit crazy, especially on shidduch phone calls. Right? That's a different discussion, right? And then the parents are like, the Baal Tshuva, and sometimes when it's said in a way that's like, all right, whatever. Not everybody can be from birth, so I guess it's better than being a guy. Like almost as if. And I always in a very nice, calm, collected, I said, I wish people would say about me that I'm a Baal Tshuva. I've been working on that for my whole life and have been profoundly unsuccessful. But I hope one day that someone could say about me, right? If after 120, someone could say at your hesped, this person was a Baal Tshuva, if on your matzeva, it says Pein Nun, right? Pon Nikbar, Pon Nitman, Bal Shova. Wow. That is the greatest accolade of all time. Because being a Bal Shova is someone who understands the power of change. That in any given moment, in any given circumstance, I could transform myself into someone else. So Moshe Rabbeinu is hearing this. I don't know who told Moshe Rabbeinu the story. Moshe Rabbeinu is hearing this story about an Adam who wouldn't own his sin, instead just deflected. And again, remember, human nature is to deflect, right? When something goes wrong, the first thing I want to say is, not me, right? It's not me. Why? Because I don't want to be associated with the blame. The problem is there's a downside to deflection, which is what? Well, if it's not you, it means you're powerless. So Adam Rishon deflects blame for the sin. Well, if you didn't do it, then I guess you don't have the power to go ahead and fix it. You don't have the power to fix it. But at the end of the day, Cain owns it. And as painful as it is to own the mistakes and misdeeds of life, the moment you own it is the moment you have the power to change it. And Moshe Rabbeinu is sitting, taking all of this in, and he's like, I cannot believe this. Mizmor L'Soda. I need to sing a song of thanksgiving. Thank you, Hashem, for giving us the power to change. And it's interesting, by the way, if you take a look at number 9, right? So just to show you another time that we find Hoda'ah in the Torah. In fact, one of the first times that we find the word Hoda'ah, gratitude in the Torah, is where? By Leah Imenu. If you take a look at number 9, so the pasuk says, Vatar od vateled ben vatomer, hapam od es Hashem. So this is Leah's 4th son, Yehuda. And she says, she becomes pregnant again, and she says, this time I will thank Hashem. Al kin karo shmo Yehuda vatamo milades. And everyone's intrigued, right? What's the obvious question? Why now? Every child is a miracle. This time I'll thank Hashem. What, for sons 1, 2, 3, and 4? You're not thanking Hashem? Now for son number 4, you thank him. So Rashi HaKodesh says, remember, again, famous Rashi, Leah saw prophetically, Yaakov Avinu had 4 wives. He was going to have 12 sons. Therefore, it makes sense. Each wife would have 3 sons. Now Leah gets, quote unquote, more than her share. So again, Hapam Odes Hashem. But if you notice, there's something fascinating. Again, I should have really put the rest of the psukim on the page. You know, that's right. Who are Leah's first 3 sons? It's not a true question. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Excellent. Reuven, Ra Hashem ba'ani. Hashem sees my suffering. Shimon, Shema Hashem. Kadosh Baruch Hu should hear my suffering. Right? Levi, Hapamila ve'ela ishi. I hope my husband begins to love me. He begins to come connected with me. Leah's first, it's interesting, right? Because generally, parents don't normally name their kids reflecting their life disappointments, right? Can you imagine how that naming would go? Hi, I want you to meet my kid. I never got to go to law school, right? In other words, right? That's generally not how we do it. Yet it's incredible how Leah names her kids like raw pain. Can you imagine how that conversation? Mommy, who was I named after? Right? Oh, no one. You were just named that your father. I feel like your father doesn't love me, so I'm hoping now that I have a kid, he'll love me. It's raw, and what it shows you is, sometimes when people are so overwhelmed and racked by pain, they don't think clearly. Leah Imenu, and understandably so, is so overwhelmed by the pain of her circumstances that all she sees is her perceived second-class status. The reason I say perceived is because, again, there's nothing to indicate to say that Yaakov didn't love Leah. Right? He did. She wasn't the woman he wanted to marry. But we never see any indication that Chas v'Shalom, he didn't treat her well, that he didn't love her. But Leah understood, right? Leah understood she was not the chosen wife. Yaakov was married to her because he was deceived. Leah is a very smart woman. She understands that had Yaakov had the choice, he would not have married her. She lives every day with, I don't know if it's actual or real, but at least a perceived sense of profound rejection. So there's pain. Son 1, son 2, son 3. And then what happens? Comes son number 4. And Leah Imenu has this epiphany. And what's the epiphany? My marriage is not going to change. This is the way that it is. These are the circumstances that there are. I'll continue to work, I'll continue to do, but there are certain realities that are immutable realities. Sometimes in life you can't change the circumstances. What you absolutely can do is change your approach. I got to change the way I look at my circumstances. I perceive my circumstances. I understand my circumstances. I relate to my circumstances. So Leah says, you know what? Enough. Enough. I am not going to spend my life mourning the fact that I was not the chosen wife. That's it. It is. It is what it is. It is what it is. My sister gave me her slot. Yaakov Avinu was deceived and duped. Remember, Yaakov didn't divorce her, right? Yaakov didn't leave her. Yaakov didn't abandon her. She wasn't the desired wife. That's it. So Leah Imenu says, you know what? I'm tired of just living in this state of constant existential pain. The circumstances are what they are. I need to change the way I look at it. I need to change the way I perceive it. I need to change the way I look at life, because Leah Imenu is not even appreciating the brachos that she's been given. Son 1, son 2, son 3. Not this is great, not this is beautiful, not this is wonderful. Pain, pain, pain. Until she finally comes to son 4 and she say, Hapam odes Hashem. Gratitude. Gratitude. I thank you, Hashem. Because I think we often assume that what's the gratitude for? What's the gratitude for? For our fourth son. Perhaps there's another layer of gratitude as well. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me the koach and the ability to be a Baal Tshuva. For giving me the koach and the ability to change the way I think. To change the way I look at my circumstances. Hapam ode es Hashem. This time I will give gratitude as Hashem. Was not only gratitude for a fourth son, but it was gratitude to be like a Cain and not like an Adam. It was the gratitude to be the kind of person who knows I have the ability to change. And it's true. I can't change a lot of things about my life. That is true. But I absolutely can change my disposition. I absolutely can change my outlook. And for that, I have incredible gratitude. Isn't it incredible that one of the first times that Hodah, that gratitude, is used in the Torah, it's used in the context of someone shifting their perspective. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Mizmor l'soda, when he realizes the power of a person to become a Baal Tshuva. And Baal Tshuva doesn't just mean you're clapping al-chitz for your sins. Baal Tshuva means I am a person who could change perspective. I am a person who could affect change in my life. And if we bring these two things together, David HaMelech is really highlighting two dramatically different ideas, but both really incredible. So what is Kapitel Kov? It's only the first pasuk. We have a lot more to do in this Kapitel, Mir Hashem. But just understand the profundity of the opening pasuk. So the first approach, the Malbim, the Metzudas David, the Gimar, the Baal Shem Tov, the Magid. What's happening over here? David HaMelech is teaching us about two different models of gratitude. Classic gratitude. Classic gratitude, you're in trouble, you're delivered. Thank you, Hashem. Obvious. But there's a higher level that we aspire to. That's called Toda. That's called gratitude, or Carbon Toda. There's even a higher level. The higher level is called Mizmor L'Soda, the song of gratitude. And what's the song of gratitude? That's the little song that you hum to yourself while you are in the midst of crisis. And maybe it feels like the sky is falling and the world is falling apart, but in my heart, I know everything is going to be okay. Whatever okay looks like. And whenever okay is going to come, and whatever scars and limping I'm going to emerge from this from. But that's Mizmor L'Soda. That's anticipatory gratitude. Right now things are really difficult, but I believe with all of my heart, Yagel libi b'shuasecha, I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be fine, and maybe even I'll thrive in the aftermath of this. That's anticipatory. That's anticipatory gratitude. That's the first approach. And the second approach is that's the David HaMelech approach. And then there's the Moshe Rabbeinu approach. The Moshe Rabbeinu approach is Mizmor L'Soda. It's not really about Carbon Toda, but it's about gratitude for something dramatically different. It's about gratitude for the greatest gift that Hashem has given us. And that's the gift of change. You know, so often in life, we focus on the things we can't change, right? And all of us, we have a lot of things we can't change. It's just the reality. You know, we don't like to think this way because, like, when you're young, right, you believe that you could change everything. I could change, you know, it's like the famous idea by the Sazon of the Divrei Chaim. Divrei Chaim said, you know, when I was young, I said I was going to change the world. As I got a little bit older, I said I'll change my country. As I got a little bit older, I said I'll change my city. As I got a little bit older, I said I'm going to change my block. I got a little bit older, I said I'm going to change my family. And now I'm an old man, and I'll be happy if I could change myself. As we get older, we recognize that there are many things in this world that we can't change. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, Mizmor L'Soda Hashem. I'm going to sing to you the song of gratitude, the greatest gratitude. I could change me. I could change me. And I could change me whenever however often I want to. And that is the greatest gift. It took Leah Imenu a little bit of time to realize that. Her fourth son, she understood it. Adam, the Medrash seems to say, really never got this lesson. And Cain, who murdered his brother, understood this lesson as well and was able to effect dramatic change in the aftermath of debilitating failure. So the second approach to Mizmor L'Soda is not Karban Todah, but a song of thanksgiving. Thank you, Hashem, for the greatest gift of all, the gift of personalistic change. Right, we'll stop over here for tonight. In Meretz we will continue one more again next week, Mizmor L'Soda Part 2, and then in Meretz Hashem in 2 weeks from tonight, our Pesach Shir. Shkoyach, everyone.